you made a killer 16 bar loop and you need to arrange your final beat, you're in the right place. In this video, I'm going to take this loop and arrange it into a complete and final beat. Now let's jump into Ableton and get to it. We've got plenty of elements to work with, and I typically like to start building from the intro all the way through. And to break it down, the simplest way to work on arranging your beats is to think about what elements in this whole loop are going to be most important in specific spots. So we're going to want tension in the intro, so I'm going to drag my respace across. And then we know we're definitely going to want the piano as well because that's the staple in the beat, so I'm going to drag that across. And then in the second half, we'll have to add one more element over at least, probably this vocal. And then also one other thing, I think I'll drag the violin over, and then we're going to tweak the arrangement a little bit. We're going to get rid of all these in-between notes, and then we're going to do a simple half-step pattern. And then now you can hear that's just overpowering everything, and we don't want it to be super bright for the intro. So I'm going to grab an auto filter, and then we're going to automate the filter sweep in so it slowly builds from a quiet state. So to get to your automation lanes, hit A on your keyboard, and then to make an adjustment, click on whatever parameter you want to automate, and then I'm going to drag it down to my starting point. Slowly build it in. And then when I make automations like this, I like to make a little bit of a sweeping arch. So you can hit Alt or Option on your keyboard and then drag it down a little bit to make a nice little bend. And then finally, when I do automations like this, I always like to automate the on-off. And then right where we're done with the automation, I always turn it off. And finally, I like to add about a bar of silence in the main elements and just let that violin sweep in. I'm going to duplicate the drop so it's 16 bars long, and then we're going to make some changes in the second half. So we'll probably get rid of the violin to start. We'll also get rid of the vocal, and then we're going to get rid of this respace because that's not intended for the hook because it's going to make the 808 muddy. And then we're going to take out a bar of the drums right at the end, and that'll be a placeholder for a transition later on. One thing I really like to do with my verses is take our piano, and then we want to add a different feel to it. So I'm going to throw halftime on it. And then because that's so low, I'm going to go back into my MIDI arrangement. We're going to highlight everything, and we're going to shift it up. So what that's doing is we're playing at a higher pitch, and it's resampling it back down. So it's not getting quieter, but it's getting slower and grittier. Duplicate that across, and then I think in the second half we're going to go back into our MIDI arrangement, select it all, and we're going to go up another octave. And then I'm going to bring my texture over as well in the second half to add a little grit, and then I'm going to automate the rate. And then we want to bring our drum arrangement across, but since it's the verse, we want it to be a little more simplified. So I'm going to open up our drum arrangement, and I like to do a straight hi-hat pattern. And then I'm going to go on each snare and get rid of the hi-hat. And then now I'm going to get rid of all the percussion, and then I'm going to keep this simple kick pattern for the whole thing. And that's going to be our second half. And then in the first half, I'm going to grab all our hi-hats, drop those out, and then we're going to drop the kick. And then in our second 8 bars, the kick and everything comes back. And now we have our two main sections. So what we need to do here is start by adding our sound effects. And now I'm going to add some transitions and risers to kind of signal the changes between sections. I'm going to go into my Grim Trap bundle, into the Dimension FX kit, and I'm going to start with some transitions. Drag that in down here. And then what I like to do is grab some risers, and then we're going to add one more for the second channel. And then the reason I do two is because I like to separate them from left to right, and it adds a lot of space as everything builds up. I'm going to go into my panning, go -25, and then go +25. And that's going to sound like this. And then what I need to do, I need to add some silence in the verse, and that's going to make these risers and everything feel a lot more abrupt. And now we have our complete hook and our complete verse, so I can start dragging those sections across to make the final beat. And then I like to do one more double length hook at the end. And you can see that it's that simple to go from a simple idea or a 16-bar loop to a complete beat just with a couple minor adjustments. And now let's listen to the final beat. Make sure to sign up for the Grim Trap Bundle waitlist to get your launch day discount. And if you missed the first video on how to make dark trap beats where I made this loop, click here.